All right, we are sitting here at the intersection of Lawson School Road and Beloit Street, way out on the far west edge of Delavan, Wisconsin. We have about 12 minutes of driving ahead of us to get across town to Briggs Road, so get comfortable. Before we even hit the gas, take a look at the open space around us. It feels quiet here, maybe a little sleepy, but this is the gateway to one of the most eccentric and historically significant towns in the entire Midwest. You might think it's just another stop in Walworth County, but Delavan is a place built by contradictions. It was founded by people who hated alcohol, yet it became a playground for wealthy partiers. It's a small town, but it birthed the biggest entertainment spectacle on earth. Let's head east on Beloit Street. As we get up to speed, you'll notice we are driving past some heavy industrial players. To your left, you might see the sprawling complexes that anchor the economy here. Delavan has always been a town that makes things. For a long time, this was the headquarters of Serene, a massive manufacturer of water pumps. If you have a pool pump or a water system in your house, or if you know a farmer with an irrigation system, there is a decent chance the technology came from the mines right here in Delavan. That blue-collar, engineering spirit is the bedrock of the town. It's why, even when the tourists leave in the winter, this place keeps humming. But while we cruise past the factories and the warehouses, I want to take you back to 1836. This town wasn't founded by industrialists. It was founded by two brothers from New York named Henry and Samuel Phoenix. These guys were distinct characters. They were hardcore abolitionists, they hated slavery, and they were fierce temperance men. They hated alcohol. They traveled here to the Wisconsin Territory specifically to establish a temperance colony, a utopia where booze was banned and moral living was the law. They named the town after Edward Delavan, a famous temperance leader in New York who, ironically, never even set foot in the town named after him. So, as you look at the houses we are passing, imagine the founders patrolling these streets, trying to keep the whiskey out. Spoiler alert, it didn't really work in the long run. The town eventually embraced the resort life, which definitely included a cocktail or two, but that moral foundation is why you see so many churches and civic organizations here. We are continuing east on Beloit Street, passing the Delavan Arboretum on the right. If you look over there, it's a living museum of trees. It's a beautiful spot to walk, but it also signals that we are moving from the industrial edge into the residential heart of the city. You see the houses getting closer together, the trees getting older. This is the transition from the working town to the living town. We are approaching a critical intersection. We are about to turn right onto Walworth Avenue. This is the main artery. Okay, here we go. Turning right onto Walworth. Now, as we straighten out, look immediately to your left. Do you see that sprawling campus with the red brick buildings and the beautiful green lawn? That is Phoenix Green, and sitting on it is the Wisconsin School for the Deaf. This institution is the soul of Delavan. It's been here since 1852. Think about that date. Wisconsin had only been a state for 4 years. The story goes that a local family, the Castellos, had a daughter named Ariadna who was deaf. They didn't want to send her far away to New York for school, so they hired a teacher to come here. The neighbors realized there were other deaf children in the area, and the Phoenix family, those Temperance brothers, donated this land to the state to build a dedicated school. It is the only residential school for the deaf in Wisconsin. The students live here, learn here, and grow up here. Their mascot is the Firebird. If you ever get a chance to watch a football game on that field, do it. It is an intense experience. The communication is entirely in American Sign Language. The quarterback isn't shouting calls, he's signing them. The drum line vibrates the bleachers so the players can feel the rhythm. It is a unique and powerful part of this town's culture. It also means that when you walk into a coffee shop or a grocery store in Delavan, You will often see people signing. It's a bilingual town in a way most people don't expect. We are cruising east on Walworth Avenue now, heading toward the historic downtown. Prepare yourself, because the sound of the drive is about to change. Do you hear that? That rumble under the tires? We just hit the bricks. This is the famous vitrified brick street. It was laid in 1913. Most towns in America paved over their bricks with asphalt in the 1960s to make the ride smoother, but Delavan fought to keep them. These aren't just normal red bricks. They are vitrified, which means they were fired at an incredibly high temperature to make them glass-hard and water-resistant. It gives the downtown a texture and a sound that you just don't find anymore. It slows you down. It forces you to look at the buildings. And you should look. To your right is a small park with a water tower and a statue of a giraffe. That is Tower Park. And that giraffe is your clue to the biggest story in town. In the mid to late 1800s, Delavan was known as the 19th century circus capital of the world. Seriously. Between 1847 and 1894, 26 different circuses wintered here. The Mabie brothers brought their circus here first because the land was cheap and there was plenty of water for the animals. Right here in this town, in 1871, a couple of locals named William Coup and Dan Castello sat down with an older guy named P.T. Barnum. They convinced him to come out of retirement. They sat in a hotel right on this street and founded the P.T. Barnum Circus, which eventually became the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. The greatest show on earth started right here on the brick street. But the real legends are the animals. You have to know about Romeo and Juliet. They were elephants belonging to the Mabie Circus. Juliet died here in 1864 during a bitter winter. The ground was too frozen to dig a grave big enough for an elephant, so they dragged her out onto Delavan Lake, which we are getting closer to, chopped a massive hole in the ice, and sank her to the bottom. She is still down there, resting in the mud. Romeo, on the other hand, was a problem. He was known as a killer elephant. He killed 5 handlers in his lifetime. He was notoriously mean, but the town loved him anyway. He lived a long life, terrorizing stable boys and eating peanuts. There used to be a statue of him right in the square. It's wild to think about elephants walking down this street where we are driving, but that was a normal Tuesday in 1860s Delavan. As we continue bumping along the bricks, look at the sides of the buildings. You see the murals? Delavan is covered in them. These were painted by a group called the Wall Dogs. They are sign painters and muralists from all over the world who descended on the town a few years back. They painted the entire history of the city on the brick walls. You can find murals of the circus trains, the ballroom dancers from the 1920s, and the founding fathers. It turns the whole drive into an open-air art gallery. We are passing the post office on the left, and you can feel the road smooth out. That marks the end of the brick street. We are leaving the 19th century and moving into the 20th. Now, slow down a little bit here. Look to your left. That magnificent brick building is St. Andrew Catholic Church. And look at that. The parking lot is absolutely packed. It looks like there is a wedding happening right now. You can see the white ribbons on the cars. There are people gathering on the steps in their suits and dresses. St. Andrew's is a cornerstone of this community. It was built largely by the Irish immigrants who came here to work on the farms and the railroads. It's been standing watch over Walworth Avenue for over 100 years. Seeing a wedding there is just perfect. It's such a classic Delavan scene, life continuing in these historic spaces. You can imagine the stained glass inside glowing with the afternoon light. It makes you wonder who is getting married. Maybe high school sweethearts from DHS? Or someone who moved away to Chicago and came back home for the big day. It adds such a nice, human energy to the drive, seeing a new chapter starting right there on the church steps. As we leave the wedding party behind, we are heading downhill slightly. To your left is Lake Comus. It's a smaller body of water, very quiet, filled with lily pads and herons. It stands in contrast to the larger Delavan Lake, which is just south of us. The lake era is the second chapter of Delavan's life. After the circuses left, the tourists came. In the 1920s and 30s, this area was a resort destination for Chicagoans. We are talking about 5 huge ballrooms on the lake. Bands like Lawrence Welk played here. But it also attracted a rougher crowd. During Prohibition, this was a haven for Chicago mobsters looking to lay low. They would come up here, rent a cottage, and spend the summer drinking illegal gin and swimming. The town that was founded by temperance leaders became a favorite spot for bootleggers. You have to appreciate the irony. We are crossing the bridge over the outlet now. On the right, you can see the dam. This controls the water level for the entire lake system. As we push out to the east side of town, the architecture changes again. We are seeing mid-century homes, gas stations, and the sprawl of modern commerce. Up on the left, we are passing the Delavan High School, DDH's home of the Comets. This school is the melting pot for the area. It brings together the kids from the industrial town of Darien and the historic streets of Delavan. There is a fierce pride in that building. If you drive by on a school day, the parking lot is packed. We are coming up on the interchange for Highway 50.